You ever wonder if an ancient letter could hold a blueprint for holding a community together, especially when things get tough? Well, today we're going to dig into just one chapter, Colossians 3, and we're going to look at it through the analysis of Dr. Daniel Darko to see how he uncovers a practical guide to unity that might be way more relevant than you think. So, you look at this chapter, right, and at first glance, it just seems filled with all these, outdated rules for husbands, wives, and slaves. I mean, how is that a guide for survival? But here's the thing Dr. Darko points out. This wasn't just some list of rules. It was a defense strategy. This community was being threatened by outside ideas, and these instructions were literally designed to make them stronger from the inside out. All right, so where do you even begin? Well, the first step in this survival guide wasn't about winning debates or laying down the law. No, it was about something way deeper. It was about forging a completely new shared identity that would unite everyone on a really fundamental level. And yeah, this slide really breaks it down for us. See, Dr. Darko points to this amazing before and after thing going on in the text. The community is told to literally put off, like take off and throw away all the behaviors that tear people apart, things like anger and malice. And then they're told to put on a whole new set of virtues that actually builds community: compassion, kindness, love. It's not something that just happens to you. It's a choice. It's like literally taking off old, dirty clothes and putting on something totally new. And get this. This is the mind-blowing result of that change. In the ancient world, these categories you see here, they defined everything about you: your race, your religion, your social status. But this new identity just wipes those lines away. Dr. Darko points out that they even mention Scythians, who back then were seen as the absolute bottom of the barrel, the most uncivilized people you could imagine. So the message is crystal clear. If they're in, then all those other lines we draw don't mean a thing. This is the bedrock of their unity. Okay, so you've got this incredible new shared identity. That's great. But how do you actually live that out day to day? Well, this next part gives us the key, the one big principle that was supposed to turn this idea into a real living reputation. This verse right here, it's basically the linchpin for the whole chapter. Dr. Darko actually calls it the Great Challenge, and you can see why. This is where the ideal of a new self crashes into the reality of everyday life. The challenge is pretty straightforward, but huge. Can every single thing you do, from what you say to what you do, reflect this new identity? But to really get that challenge, we have to know what "in the name of" actually meant back then. See, Dr. Darko makes it clear that in that Greek world, a name wasn't just, a label. It was everything. It was your reputation, your authority, your license to operate. So to act in the name of someone meant you were their representative. So suddenly, every single thing you do or say is a public statement. You're either building your community's reputation up or you're tearing it down. No pressure, right? And that brings us to, well, the part of this chapter that makes a lot of people today pretty uncomfortable: the household codes. This is where that great challenge gets put to the test in the most important, most basic social unit of the ancient world, the family. But these aren't just a random list of rules. They're the practical application of living out that new reputation. But before we even get into the specifics, we have to get our heads around this number. In your average city in the Roman Empire, up to a third of the entire population were slaves. Slavery wasn't some minor thing. It was the bedrock of their entire economy. As Dr. Darko points out, this little brand new community wasn't about to overthrow the Roman Empire. Their goal was to figure out a completely different way to relate to each other inside that broken system. Okay, this chart is just fascinating. If you look at the columns on the right, you see the standard thinking of the day. The Jewish historian Josephus says flat out, a woman is inferior. The Greek view was even more, transactional. You have a wife for kids, and you go elsewhere for pleasure. Now, compare that to what's being said on the left. Yeah, it's still challenging for us to read, but by putting commands on both the wife and the husband, he's introducing something pretty radical for the time, this idea of mutual responsibility. So let's break that down. First, the instruction to wives. Dr. Darko really hones in on the specific words used here. The call is for them to voluntarily submit. It's something they choose to do, not something the husband gets to demand or enforce. And the whole thing is framed in the Lord, which means it's supposed to be guided by the values of their new identity. But that is only half the story, because it's immediately followed by this command to the husband, which is the crucial other side of the coin. He doesn't get a free pass or unchecked power. No, he gets an even bigger responsibility: to love his wife and, specifically, not to be harsh with her. And that mutuality, this idea that voluntary submission is met with self-giving love, that was a total game changer. Okay, now for the toughest one, the instruction for slaves. And again, Dr. Darko is clear. The point here was never to say slavery is okay. Instead, it was about totally reframing the slave's reason for working. Their work, their day-to-day grind, was transformed into an act of worship, done with real sincerity, not for the human boss who might be watching, but for a higher ultimate lord. And just like the husbands, the masters do not get off easy. They get hit with this radical challenge. Give your slaves what is right and fair. I mean, this was absolutely revolutionary. It was telling them to treat their property as a human being who deserved justice. And why? Because the master himself has to answer to a higher master in heaven. You see the pattern? In this new community, everybody, from the wife to the powerful slave owner, is under the exact same ultimate authority. So, okay, we've got a new identity, we've got these really challenging rules for how people should act at home, but why? What's the point of all this hard internal work? This last part pulls it all together and shows us the bigger picture. And this slide really lays out Dr. Darko's whole argument, step by step. It all starts in the home. First, you get harmony at home because of that mutual responsibility. Second, those peaceful, healthy households come together and form a strong, unified church. And that leads to the final step. That unified, healthy community becomes this powerful, positive example to everyone on the outside. It was a strategy for survival and for mission, all starting from the inside out. So that's where we land. The huge takeaway from Colossians 3 is that how a community behaves on the inside directly shapes how it's seen on the outside. And that leaves us with a pretty big question for ourselves, doesn't it? If we think about our own households, whether that's our actual family, our team at work, whatever community we're part of, what does the way you all treat each other say to the rest of the world?